My name is Matthew. I am the IEYC curriculum manager here at Fieldwork. So I lead on the development and maintenance of the IEYC. I noticed that Nadine's in the webinar. I've been talking to her about early years assessment. Yeah, Nadine, do you want to ask the question?
Sorry, no. Hi, I was just waving.
Oh, right.
Sorry, wrong reasons.
So in this, I'm not sure how many of you have seen the second pre-recorded webinar, but there are two short videos, probably about 4 or 5 minutes, of children playing. These were tasks where we asked the viewers to look at the episode that the children were playing in and make some judgments about what you had seen. The focus of the second webinar was really about how do we collect information about children, and that's the real basis of it. You know, how do we do it? In the first pre-recorded webinar, we talked about what information should we collect and how do we record it and document it. And this is about how do we collect the information that we want. So, in the webinar, Jan talks about testing in the early years. He shows a picture of a ladybird or a ladybug, and there's a test question which is how many dots are on the ladybird. So there are a number of issues with testing in the early years. The main issue that Jan has with that is he's saying that lots of very young children don't really understand tests. They don't get nervous. They don't understand there's a right or wrong answer. They don't understand that someone has already decided what the answer is. So in the ladybird example, there are 4 dots on the back of the ladybird. So the answer with how many spots is 4. But Jan points out that the eyes look like spots, and many children will say 6 or maybe even 8. And so when you test children in the early years, you are likely to get an incomplete picture or the wrong picture. It says the bottom point there, which says children's innate creativity, different perception and intrinsic motivation dilute the rigor and therefore the accuracy of the process. When we collect information about children, we want it to be accurate. Now, there are a number of issues with accuracy, but testing children tends not to work. In the first webinar, Jan and I talked about prompted observations, where you set up some opportunities to see how children count. That is different from testing. A test is where you take a child, you put them straight in front of the activity, and you expect them to show you what they know. We know that if an activity is not meaningful to a child, they will not be engaged. They're unlikely to show you what they really know. And so testing in the early years just does not work. You may get answers, but they're unlikely to be correct. Has anybody got any questions about any of that, or are we happy with that? So Jan says that, like I think most people in the early years, that we collect information through observation. We watch children, we interact with children, and from that we can glean information. We build up a knowledge of the child. Not all observations have to be planned. Let's just be clear about that. Planned observations are good if you are trying to find out specifics, but a big number of your observations will just happen from your interactions. So as you play with children, as you support them, they will do things or tell you things that will enable you to make a judgment or will help you to understand where the child is in their learning across the strand. And as he said, I think the most important part there is the second point. We know that children will give you the best picture of what they can do within their own led and their own initiated play. It's only when a child goes independently to an area and starts counting that you know they understand what numbers are for, that they have the repertoire or the knowledge at their disposal, independently to start counting. That's one of the reasons this child initiated sort of play is so important. And as it says there, it provides adults with opportunity to access detail knowledge as it is happening. So how you choose to record is up to you. Lots of people will retain that in their head. And I think in the first pre-recorded webinar, Jan was quite clear that if you ask any early years teacher about the children in their class, they hold a huge amount of information on the children in their class that's built up from conversations with parents, other teachers, siblings, with the child themselves through their interactions. So in the first webinar, Jan said that each early years teacher has approximately 1,000 interactions a day. And all of that will help you to understand the children within your class. Does anybody have a question about that? Well, I'd like to ask a question. How can anybody tell me of a successful way in which they observe children? Because I'm always quite interested in this, because obviously as a teacher I had my way of observing. I was wondering if anybody else has some. Nadine, thank you.
Hi. So I just have a question, but I didn't raise my hand in time. So how do you assure that teacher judgment, teachers, and for example, we've got 4 classes in FS2, 3 in FS1. How do I know that all teachers are judging according, in an effective way? So, for example, across the key stage, we assure that the children are receiving the same judgment.
Okay. Yeah, and I mean this is one of the weaknesses with observation, because obviously what I see will be different from what Nadine sees, will be different from what Manisha sees, and will be different from what Sharmila sees. We will all interact with children in different ways. So even if we support and scaffold the same activity, children will show us different parts of their learning and development. They will demonstrate differently. And how do we make sure that we all are making accurate judgments? I mean, and this is about accuracy, as Manisha does. So they started making portfolios, and you can share those. so that people can actually look at what judgments, if I have a portfolio, I can share it with you, Nadine, and you can see what judgments I'm making. Obviously, another way is, really at the core of reflective practices, which is when you interpret something, it's good to do it with someone else. So if you have a teacher and a teaching assistant, or another teacher, a first language teacher, maybe you're lucky enough to have a specialist teacher that comes into your class for art, you should discuss your judgments with someone else. That will increase the accuracy of it. And then when it comes to across classes, Nadine, realistically, you need to use some of the staff meeting time to moderate judgments. So what is a good way of doing this is saying to, say, all of your FS2 teachers, okay, I want you to bring me some observations of communicating through speaking and listening. So that you may have observations that teachers have written down, the words that were said, maybe some videos filmed on an iPad, maybe a collection of photos, maybe some work samples to support that. And then try and put them into a developmental continuum. So which comes first? Which is the earliest form? Which is in phase A? Which is in phase B? How do you know? And get your team to talk about it, because one of the indicators of a high quality learning, early learning environment is the number of conversations that are focused on learning that are happening. We've known about this for years. When I was doing a master's over 15 years ago, this was talked about. If teachers are talking about learning and discussing and unpicking learning, their teaching will improve. We know this because their understanding of what a child will need next, or where a child will need support, will be they will have a better understanding of that. Does that answer your question, Nadine?
Somehow, yes. However, I was wondering if there is a specific criteria for each of the areas, for example, in speaking and listening. But the thing is, the philosophy of the IEYC is focused on not really categorizing the children and saying that they're emerging, developing, and so on in each of these areas. And that's the confusion. Where is the confusion coming from? Because we're used to the EYFS framework, and this is our first year into the IEYC. So it's just the switch of, the mindset into not judging, while recording observations in each of the areas. So there is a slight, gray area that we're trying to work on.
I mean, I've worked in IEYC schools where they use beginning, developing, and mastering, just like the IPC, for skills judgment. So, I think I emailed you with knowledge. It's a yes or no question to a certain extent. I mean, children are building knowledge, but knowledge tends to be fixed. You either know something or you don't. Skills are variable. So a good example is if I found 3 people that could ride a bicycle, one who was a 5-year-old girl who just learnt to ride a bicycle without stabilizers or on her own, one who was a 13-year-old boy who likes to cycle around roads with his friends, and one who is a professional cyclist, they can all ride a bike, but they are at different levels of mastery. And your assessments can reflect that. That's where this sort of beginning, developing and mastering happens. For some of the, especially say with scissors, you know, I'm sure that you can think of children in your classes who pick up the scissors, they hold them the wrong way round. They're able to cut with scissors, but they hold them in a strange way. Maybe they use their other hand, they cut backwards. And then there will be other children who can pick up scissors and use them fine, can cut along the line. There may be other children who can hold them correctly, but are still struggling to cut along a line. And so you can use that when you're making judgments against the skills outcomes, of which there are more. There tend to be more skills outcomes in the IEYC than there are in the knowledge and increasing understanding. And when we get to the understanding outcomes, Nadine, that is difficult, because I think Learning Principle 6 talks about the fact that knowledge and skills development is the foundation of an increasing sense of understanding. So it's through knowledge and skills that we develop understanding, and it takes time. And for some of our children, it's very difficult to make accurate and reliable judgments against their understanding. The best way that I have seen in a school is that they ask children, can you explain this? And if a child can explain something, they're developing their understanding. Their understanding is increasing. My understanding of other people is still developing. It is still increasing. It's not set. Something that I learned when I was 3, I am still increasing my understanding. So understanding is a challenge. The skills you can do, as you said, a bit like the EYFS, with the beginning, developing and mastering, which is taken from the IPC. And knowledge is generally a yes or a no. I would encourage you to think, maybe with your team, that if a good example would be, say, learning outcome 5, which is about conveying ideas, so that the children have the skill of being able to convey ideas. Well, if that is sort of generally expected as an outcome of the IEYC, what would that look like in a 2-year-old? What would that look like in a 3-year-old? What would that look like in a 4-year-old and a 5-year-old? Because then you're starting to think about that developmental aspect of, and that incremental learning, because a 2-year-old will be able to convey ideas, but they will generally be about their own world, about themselves, their needs. It won't be that broad, that sort of being able to convey ideas about broad subjects, about subjects with other people. There may not be an understanding of how to convey it sensibly. It may be that they convey that they're hungry by crying or screaming or having a tantrum, through their behavior. So their behavior is communicating something. And that would be it would be a good exercise to talk to your teachers about, to do with your teachers, not to say all 2-year-olds will be like this, but to really think about how does that learning outcome, how can children demonstrate that learning outcome in a developmentally appropriate way. Does that answer it? Good. And Nadine, you know, as I say to most people here, you know, if you have any further questions after this that you need answered, you can contact me on my fieldwork, you know, on the pinboard, or you can email IEYC@fieldworkeducation.com, and I can answer questions there. But I would encourage you to talk through the pinboard. It's one of my real aims to get people to use that more. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a video clip of Ellis and his trap for baddies. So this is about 5 minutes, and I think, you know, what we'll do afterwards is we'll talk about what curriculum knowledge and skills does Ellis demonstrate, and, you know, are there any learning behaviours, sort of personal goals involved. So I'll just put this on.
Right, should we have a yes, how long a piece of tape would you like?
Quite long.
Quite long. Is that long enough? There you go. Okay. Go on then, I'll help you, Katie. Do you want me to hold it while you tape it? Here's your tape. Oh, brilliant! Did you tear it yourself? Fantastic! I'll come and have a look, Holly. Is it
onto there?
Right, so should we try another piece of tape because that piece has got stuck together? Can you?
Or maybe we can go like this.
Oh, do you need a piece of tape on there, do you think?
Yes,
It's strong.
put that on like that.
Right, go on then. Of course you can. Again. If I start it for you, then you can press the. Oh, brilliant. Brilliant.
Well, I think this would be good for a trap to get.
What's it going to trap, Ellis?
The bad is trying to get in.
Oh, they won't be able to. They go into there, do they?
Yeah, but I think they'll touch it and they'll get hooked in it.
And then what will we do with them?
Well, just leave them there and cause they put them in jail. They might just even crawl in, look.
Oh, is there a space for them to crawl in?
Yeah. If you need it. Okay. There's some there. This is This is Alice. Oh, I'm watching that. Oh, she hasn't really got a put. What's that doing? Oh, get out. Bad. It's romantic, but again, it's forgetting. But I'm writing bad. Oh yeah, it's down and that way. Right, yeah. Go back off and do it. I'm doing baddies now. Oh, don't like baddies. Yeah, but I've done I like baddies for baddies. Alice, why don't you when you finish your writing, why don't you get on here and try and put it back on there? Yeah. And then I would be able to if we put there. She hasn't really got a might even be a tricky one. Yeah. This is ACTA for baddies.
Okay. As you can see, and that play episode went on for over an hour. So Ellis was heavily involved, very motivated. He was definitely enjoying himself. So that definitely met learning principle 8. But can anybody suggest some of the curriculum knowledge or skills that Ellis demonstrated whilst he was in that play episode? Okay, well, I mean, I can give you some ideas around the sort of skills that he was demonstrating. So he was definitely able to do sort of learning outcome 5, conveying ideas. Talked about the baddies. He said that he'd probably, maybe they could go to jail. He was sharing ideas with his friends, telling them what he was trying to write. He can definitely form positive relationships with his peers and with his teacher. So that was definitely in evidence. He was able to play, cooperate and collaborate with other children. He definitely approached the tasks with confidence and independence. He needed some support at times, but he was able to. He was able to generally show all of the speaking and listening outcomes. He was able to express himself. He was able to use the past tense, the present tense, the future tense. He was able to ask questions. He was obviously showed some ability to do reading and writing. He showed some phonological knowledge there. He obviously knew trap. He needed a little bit of help with baddies, but IES for baddies is quite difficult. So that I don't think we would say he was not at an expected level. There was obviously he was able to count, definitely up to 5. They were hitting the post with 5. He demonstrated the ability to control and coordinate. He showed some balance at times where he was standing up and pinning up the sign he'd made. And obviously the attitudes there, the learning behaviours, really we're talking about their personal learning goals. So did anybody see any evidence of personal learning goals being involved? Well, let's look at them. So he was definitely communicating. He was communicating through his actions. He was communicating through his talk. He was communicating through his writing. So it was definitely him acting as a communicator and communicating. He was definitely cooperating with his peers. He showed some respect. He was saying thank you, please, when he was talking to the teacher. He was also sharing space, so he wasn't overcrowding his friends. So there was respect. Morality, that one's a bit more difficult, but I suppose the concept of baddies and going to jail, he showed some understanding of it. I don't feel that this was a very good observation for understanding morality. Inquiry, yet again, I'm not entirely sure about inquiry. He was posing questions and giving sort of very simple explanations. Resilience, so he didn't give up on the writing when he found it hard. He definitely found trap and baddies hard. He also spent over 1 hour making his trap for baddies, so he's obviously quite resilient there. He can focus, he can, his attention, he was able to keep his attention on this. He wanted to complete it before he walked off. Some younger children probably would have not been able to last an hour doing this. So there was definitely evidence of his resilience. Thoughtfulness, he was, there was one point where he was going, while he was writing, so he was definitely thinking. There was evidence of his thinking, and he was, I would say he was adaptable too. So in the first pre-recorded webinar, Jan talked about the fact that children are multi-curricular. I think we've shown evidence there that Ellis has demonstrated learnings from all different learning strands, and in fact all the different subcategories as well. The privilege of being someone like Ellis's teacher enables you to work out what is significant. So it could be that his writing was significant. The fact that he reversed his P. If you look at his P in that, and if you go back to the second pre-recorded, when he writes trap, the P is backwards. That may be the thing that you decide as a teacher is important, the thing that you will choose to focus on with him. It may be that you decide that this making traps was significant, and actually you're going to change some of your planning the next day to have Ellis teaching people how to make traps for baddies. Maybe that's something he could do. So you're not really using your observation to make judgments, but you're using your observation to think about what would be an appropriate next activity. So, it's only by being a person's teacher, by having those interactions, that you're able to work out from all of those sort of learning outcomes. And it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. 21 learning outcomes from the learning outcomes, and about 6 personal learning goals. It's by being Ellis's teacher, you will know what's significant. But yeah, there were quite a few. And obviously, Nadine, going back to your question about how can you ensure accuracy, I would share that video. If I had videoed that as a teacher, maybe in a staff meeting, I would share it and get everybody to talk about it. What did you see? What did I see? Where can we agree that where Ellis is against some of the outcomes? Because that's where you will develop the moderation and the consistency and the accuracy across your teaching team. Are there any questions about that? Huh? Oh yeah, please, Nadine.
Okay, sorry. Regarding the learning objectives, okay? Mm-hmm. So teachers were using tapestry, okay, so for recording observations and so on. So they focus on choosing the objectives that are reflected within the observations they recorded, but they, at this moment, then not many teachers are looking at the outcomes yet. So should they be checking both?
I think especially when it's the school where your school is in your journey. You know, as you're starting new with the IEYC, looking at the learning experiences is really important. I think as you get closer to the times where you have to report to parents, that's when you start thinking about the outcomes. It's good to understand and know the outcomes because it helps you as a teacher guide the children that way. So if a child's asking questions, you may, you know, want to check what questioning words they know. But, you know, I'd focus on the learning experiences to begin with, because familiarity with the curriculum and actually what are you providing for the children will have the biggest impact. But as you know, at some point you have to make judgments on the children. If this is your first year with the IEYC, focusing on the learning experiences enables your teachers to understand the philosophy when they start looking at the learning outcomes. Does that make sense to you, Nadine? Okay, good. And yeah, I completely concur with what you're doing. I think that's really sensible. So, now, one of the things that I think is always nice to remember is this: the more you see, the more you know. So the longer that you watch that Ellis and the Trap for Baddies, the more you learn about him, the more you know about him. But also, the more that you know about Ellis, the more that you will actually see. So if you know that Ellis, for him, writing is very easy, but his P's, he reverses his P's, you will know, I don't need to concentrate on that, I'll concentrate on something else. I'll look for his social skills, or I'll look for his counting skills, or I'll look for his ability to extend and develop the play episode with his friends. So, you know, that's always quite, I like that quote because it sort of really sums up the benefits of observation. It helps you know the children better, which then helps you see more, which then helps you know the children better, which then lets you see more. And, you know, once again, I would encourage people to talk to parents because they will offer a very different perspective of the child than you will see, and, you know, will also help you to provide appropriate and relevant and meaningful experiences to the children. Right. Now, sound and vision with Erin. So this is a very different observation or play episode. I was talking with the host before anybody came. This is what I used to love about teaching in the early years, was that you'd put something on and you would learn something completely new about a child that you never even knew about them. So I will play this video and then we can talk about this too. So the idea is, let's just look at expressive arts and creativity.
I like the break dancing the best. I like doing it fast. I really like fast stuff like my dad. I like the hum. I like the fast hum. When you do the fast hum, I get faster and faster and faster. I just don't like really, really slow stuff.
You know, you were talking about the hum in breakdancing. Can you hear a hum in the ballet music? What can you hear in the ballet music?
I can hear always dun 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 dun. All the times that it always comes on, except the breakdancing. But I like the breakdancing best, so we should do that every day.
But you know, when I put the ballet music on the CD player, I never saw you dancing here.
Because I didn't want to. I just don't like really, really slow stuff.
And why do you like breakdancing best, Erin?
When the drum.
You like the drum? Yeah, and what else do you like about it?
Fast.
It's really fast.
Yeah, because I like running fast.
You like
My dad's an artist as well. That's when I done that drawing. My dad's a really good drawer, and I like to copy my dad.
Have you got any more paintings in this room, Erin, do you think?
I've got one more.
Which one do you like best out of those two, Erin? Which one are you really, really proud of? That one, why?
Because I like thick stuff as well.
What do you mean by thick stuff? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
What do you mean? I'm not understanding,
Because
Erin.
that's thin
Yeah.
and that's fat.
So, I mean, I think as you can see, yet again, I mean, Erin likes fast things, doesn't like slow things. She uses a lot of her language to explain that. She, you know, when it comes the pictures on the wall, she expresses preference. Did anybody see anything that they felt was important to highlight? So we can definitely see that she, you know, if we look at the learning outcomes there, so number 42, the uses of a range of art tools, materials, and musical instruments. She was able to do that. She's definitely got a knowledge and an understanding. She was able to make different types of marks with the paintbrush. She was able to make dots. She was able to make lines. She was able to make big circles. She was able to draw sort of straight squiggly lines. So she definitely is quite accomplished at that. She definitely has a knowledge and an increasing understanding of maybe not a range of songs and music, but she definitely has a preference to her hip hop or her breakdancing music. She's developing an understanding of other types of music, so ballet, but obviously it doesn't really fit the tone of what she prefers, and she's definitely able to show the skills of being able to. She definitely experiments and expresses ideas. She was able to copy the butterfly. She was able to draw a variety of different plants. She was able to dance to different music. So she was representing ideas. I mean, I'm sure you saw the different ways that she was dancing. Obviously influenced by her father. So, you know, all of that, and I think with the learning experiences, I mean, she's solidly sort of in the phase B of development. She responds in creative ways to rhythm and beat. She's able to express ideas, moods and feelings through the movement, dance and rhythm. So there's a variety of sort of curriculum coverage, if you want to call it that, and definitely working towards the outcomes. Did anybody notice anything else they'd like to highlight before we move on? Okay, the one thing I would highlight out of that entire thing, the thing that I felt was really important, was that she was talking about her dad. She was saying that her father is an artist, that he likes this type of music. Now, if Erin was in my class, I would be trying to get hold of the father and trying to see if he would come into the environment, maybe do some art with the family or with the children, maybe do some dancing with Erin to encourage others. You could see that there were about four, maybe 5 children that were interested in dancing to this type of music. And so, you know, I would try and build on that learning link. It's obviously something maybe that he feels comfortable with. Maybe he would not feel comfortable doing it in a classroom, but maybe asking him for music that Erin knows from home so she could teach her other friends. You know, I would really build on and try and, you know, capitalize on the learning link for Erin there. I think that's the most important part. But yet again, that's what's most important for me. And it could be very different for Sharmila, it could be different for Nadine, it could be different for Manisha, and it's probably, or undoubtedly different for her teacher, who knows Erin best. So she will know what was the most important part of that. But for me, I think it would have been the mention of the father, and I would have tried to build on that over the next, say, week or few days, to try and engage the family to really extend that play episode. Look, the last thing that I'd like to do and just finish is this. You know, the capture, interpret, respond. So the IEYC reflective practices places you, the teacher, at the centre of the assessment process, because you are the variable. the child will be demonstrating their learning no matter whether you're watching them or not. They will be doing that in their own self-learned play. And as he said, if I watch the same child, I will probably see something different from Sharmila, different from Nadine, different from Manisha, and the need to explain that. So when you are recording or writing or documenting, be very aware of, is it I, or is it he, she, or is it we? So is it I saw, or is it the child took, or is it we decided? Be very clear about that, because that actually is critical to the information that you're collecting. You are the variable. Share your observations with your co-teachers, with parents, with the child themselves, because they will all have a different but equally valid understanding of what was seen. On that note, are there any questions that you'd like to ask generally about observation or observation formats, types? I'm happy to answer. As I said, if you think of a question after this, please feel free to put it up on the IEYC pin board, and I will, if you leave your email address, Nadine can vouch for me and say that if you do that, I will contact you. I do check the pin board daily, and I do reply to questions. I may leave it a day to see if other teachers will answer, but I will answer if no one else does. So thank you for your attendance, and carry on delivering the IEYC and making a difference in the children's lives for whom you are a teacher. It's a great job. So thank you for your time and your attendance.